Hey everyone, and welcome back to once again another message and another episode of In His Own Language.
Hi.
I'm Morgan Entz.
And I'm still Tia Hansen.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the 9th episode, which is Family, Service, and Eternal Marriage. But first of all, we'd like to welcome everyone who's here, anyone that's coming on our chat room at inhisownlanguage.com. Of course, send out the word that we're sending out now on Facebook or the other social media. We hope you all enjoyed General Conference last week. We sure did. We were just talking about how much we liked it.
We were actually sitting chatting right before we started the show here about what good stuff that was in it. And of course, you can't really grade it, even though besides all the good talks, we were saying, it's also this wonderful and this wonderful and all that.
And we invite you to go in. If you miss conference, you can still see it. You can go online at lds.org, and all the conference movies and the audio, and also in different languages. Even if there isn't a language here in His Own Language, it's probably, the conference is probably in that language, so you probably can find it.
Oh yeah, it should be. It should be. And so that's a really good reason to see it. And what we're going to be talking about today is also something that was talked about and always counts, actually. Family and service and doing good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get going.
Yeah, for sure. So basically what we're talking about today, it's two sections, basically. There's family and then service. And under the family, there's what we call eternal marriage. So there's some little terms we've been, like vocabulary unique to Mormons or members of the church. But we're going to go in and talk about these things in depth. So hopefully you're able to understand it.
If not, write into us and ask us questions in the open chat room.
We have email, we have Facebook, all these things.
Yeah.
But the basic unit of the church is a family. This is also basically the basic unit of society.
Yeah.
And within a family, we believe that God has given us families because it's a pattern of how life was with Him. He is our eternal Father. He loves us. And the family unit is a unit where you can learn, you can experience joy, sorrow, but you don't have to do it alone. You have other people to experience it with.
Yeah, you can actually say that that the family is kind of like a miniature version of the world. Probably a better version too, because you ought to be sure of everyone in your family actually loves you. So, hopefully. Anyways, but that is the miniature world, and the better that unit is so important because that actually prepares you, or at least that's what it's supposed to prepare you to go and venture into the world when you reach a certain age. And so the family unit becomes all of a sudden looking at that point of view, very, very unique and a great opportunity at a learning place. And to live the rest of your life, actually. Mm-hmm.
And so a family starts with a marriage between a man and a woman. Now, a couple can be a family in themselves, they're their own family, and of course, if they have children, then it's part of the family, right?
Yeah. So the family, just to make sure, because we know there are people that are not having children even though they're married and all that. The family is not the children. The family starts with, just like you said, a man and woman. Mm-hmm. And I like that because, and I actually remember that when I was first marriage, I've only been married once, and I'm still married, but anyway, sorry.
I'm not married.
And,
I'm not married
he's single, so, and we're not, anyways.
No.
This is the English language, anyways.
She's from Denmark. So.
What was I going to say? I remember some people were telling us we were having, because we didn't have children at this time, and this was in Denmark, and some of our good friends saying, why are you going home for the young married couple family home evening? I said, well, because we also need our own family home evening. And they go, but you don't have children. I said, it doesn't start with children. It starts with your companion. And must I add, I've experienced not being perfect, of course. I have experienced later that it is so true that it does. The good habits of having family home evening starts as a couple, and it will be so easier to keep that going when you have children. Mm. So just so we got that straightened out.
Yeah. And that union, that marriage, is also something that's ordained of God. We believe that marriage is essential to God's plan, that He has condoned marriage and He wants us to get married. And He's also made it possible that our marriage bond and our marriage relationship can continue after the grave, after we die. And that's what we say when we refer to eternal marriage. That is the ability for a married couple, through the power of the priesthood, to be able to continue the relationship after the grave.
Yes. And one of the things with marriage in this church is that it has to be performed by authorized priesthood holders. And what that's one of the things we use the temples for, is to be married for time and all eternity in the temples. And so, which means that but it is just not an easy thing to enter like anything else. It's of course, when it's such a holy covenant that we enter into, it also gives us a lot of responsibility to live up to, but not in a bad way. A responsibility that will help us develop in our own lives as we meet these responsibilities and live up to them.
And I'm not married myself, of course, but my parents are, and I've seen and a lot of my siblings, most of my siblings are, and I've seen the help that it gives a relationship when it's not only just a covenant or a promise between two people, but it's actually a promise of the man and the wife to each other, and then also to God. God is in the equation, and God is helping hold that marriage together and helping them. I don't know. I'm not married, but I'm assuming
you can still talk about it, even though just like we talk about a perfect gospel, but we're not perfect ourselves.
True.
So you can certainly talk about that, and that's the example you've seen in your family. I've had also from my parents seen their example, and like you have probably in your parents as well, and some of it is good, and probably some of it you don't like, and that's just the way it goes. But nevertheless, the marriage is a holy institution created of God for the benefit of mankind, and should be honored as such and treated as such. It is for help and for us as well, children, and for our lives on earth to bless us through the holy institution of marriage. When that is said and done, it's not necessarily always easy. I can say that, and I've seen it in my own parents. But because of the promises of being able to be sealed, and one of the terminologies we use also in the church, meaning that we stay together for eternity, and the bonds of death cannot separate a family, that brings to us a certain advantage in the sense of everything that we work with becomes a lot worthwhile, because it is towards eternity. It is everything that we strive to do is because we don't want to let go of each other or the family, so we constantly keep working at it and striving towards the same goals, which makes a lot more sense. Because it counts in eternity, whatever I do. So that makes it worthwhile, at least for me, to think, okay, it is worthwhile. This also in the times where it's harder for whatever reason, that I have this perspective together with my husband and my children. That nothing is going to break us up no matter what happens. Whatever I do will stay with us for eternity.
Yeah.
And so that's one beautiful way. Of course, in short, it does mean that we do need to have a certain report, so to speak, towards each other as man and wife. And what do we need to do? What are the standards? And we're not touching about a lot of it. It is, so don't turn away. It's just really standard things we're just going to touch upon.
Yeah, well, of course, husbands and wives need to love each other. That's probably the first thing that needs to happen, right?
That would work out really well.
But they also, not only are there's a covenant to themselves, but there's also a covenant to God, but they covenant to themselves that they will keep the commandments and live the gospel. And so by living the gospel together, their bond and their relationship is strengthened, and they together come closer to God than just one person. So it's kind of two people both working towards God by keeping the commandments.
So they're working together, but they're also working individually in the marriage to reach and reach their goals. And so that gives up to the fact of keeping the commandments, as you said, and also to have a certain respect towards each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so husbands and wives need to also keep their marital vows and be completely have complete fidelity to each other. Which
is, of course, a hard word to throw out right now in this day and age, and probably always have been, fidelity. But nevertheless, we cannot erase it because such is the gospel. So we have to say it. Mm-hmm. And such is the law of the Lord. So we cannot change that. So that's what he asks us to do in a marriage. When we are in a marriage, and not because we're marriage counselors, we say this, understanding when we talk about how the companionship is between a man and a wife, and you've seen this in your parents, I've seen it in mine, and I know a little bit about it being married myself, that there's a lot of other things going on. It's not, love is very essential, of course, for why we want to marry. And that love brings us to do some other actions that follow. And some of these actions actually are called service. And that actually also takes place in the unit, the family unit, whether it be with children or without children, or just between a couple that is married. And that service is very important. The way we treat others and why we even need to do that. And why we actually, this is again the gospel that are teaching. This is not our ideas. This is actually the scriptures too that is stressing this point of exactly how important it is, this service, and why, what is it that we need, and why, how do we actually need to behave, realizing we're not perfect. But still, we have a goal to set. Why don't we read that? It's actually in the Book of Mormon in Mosiah, and it's actually a part of a covenant, a baptismal covenant that we use. And this is given at a point where people ask, what can we do? Because if we want to do all these things, we want to be better, we want to start developing the gospel, what do we need to do? And so this is the answer that is given. And if we are willing to do this service, then we're ready for baptism, which means that after the baptism, we still have to keep the promise that we are willing to continue that service. Mm-hmm. So
I got a little Book of Mormon here.
Well, we also have it down here.
And we have it here too.
Yeah.
But if you have a Book of Mormon,
yeah,
turn to page 181. That's Mosiah chapter 18.
Yeah, good one.
So we'll read it from here because it's a lot bigger.
Because it's a little tiny.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So this is one of the prophets talking to the people, right, about the baptismal covenant. Yeah. And now as ye are desirous to come unto the fold of God, and to be called his people, and are willing to bear one another's burdens, that they may be light, yea, and are willing to mourn with those that mourn, yea, and comfort those that stand in need of comfort, and to stand as a witness of God at all times, and in all things, and in all places. Now I say unto you, if this be the desire of your hearts, what have you against being baptized in the name of the Lord, as a witness before him, that ye have entered into a covenant with him, that ye will serve him and keep his commandments, that he may pour out his Spirit more abundantly upon you. Now I say unto you, if this be the desire of your hearts, what have you against being baptized in the name of the Lord, as a witness before him, that ye have entered into a covenant with him, that ye will serve him and keep his commandments, that he may pour out his Spirit more abundantly upon you.
Well, that's a lot about things. What does that actually tell us?
Well, it gives us some steps. When you're getting baptized, it's just like the marriage covenant. It's a covenant between humans and God, mm-hmm. God's children and him. And so one of the things that I guess is a good marker to see if we're ready to be baptized is our willingness to serve, because when we get baptized, it's a covenant that not only will we serve God, but we also learn in the Book of Mormon that when we serve God, or when we're serving the children of God, we're also serving God.
Yeah.
And so we covenant that we're going to bear one another's burdens. We're going to help people out, mm-hmm. Mourn with those that mourn, and comfort those that stand in need of comfort, and then stand as a witness of God. Do what Jesus would do. And what Jesus did, he helped people. He taught some great service, but he also went around and he healed people, he served people. And when we act as the Savior would, and as we serve our fellow man, we're also serving God, and we're keeping our covenant that we've made.
And that ties a little bit, just to take a quick step back, when we started talking about family and the family unit, how important it is to start there, because that is a little miniature world for us. And so that's a good place to start, learning to serve others, each other, whether it be couple, children, and parents, or whatever, so we can actually practice there and then reach out to others. We might not be perfect. The practice doesn't lie in the fact that we need to be perfect to serve others or help others or reach out to others. It is just the fact of trying and getting good habits and be aware of other people's needs without necessarily having to ask all the time, but just see needs in other people. And so that's also a good place to start. But that's actually by the baptismal covenant. And that is important because we do become members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when we are baptized. And so this part is important because this is what we actually promise when we enter into the baptismal covenants and the water. And so we are called as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We've said yes to actually be aware of other people's physical as well as spiritual needs. Mm-hmm. And that can be hard, of course. We also need our own spiritual needs and to feed those. But the Lord has not, as usual, He has not left us without any instruments to do this. He's always helped us with things. And one of the things He's given us, besides so many other things, is talents. Every one of us has been given at least one talent that can help us in fulfilling this covenant that we have given Him, the covenant of service, serve others and see their needs. And the talents will help us to actually be better or more aware as we grow and use them to work amongst people and be an SS and what's that word I just said? Well, anyways, a help for them.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's fine.
And as you said, through that we will come closer. We will follow the example of Christ, because that's what it's all about. He showed the way, and that's what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And this really also ties back into what we've been talking about with families, because the first priority of the members of the church is to bless and serve and to teach their own family. But the next unit of the church, after the family, is a ward. And members also are extended callings.
Yes.
And so, you serve in your family and you do as Jesus would do there. But you also can be asked to serve others, to serve other families. And everyone in the church has at least one calling, and that is being a home teacher or a visiting teacher. So that means that men go out to families and teach them, and then women also can go and they teach each other. And that's a great way to serve. And everyone in the church has basically that kind of calling to.
And that's because it's related to that scripture. Yeah. That's why everyone is asked to do that, to help us and help others, to help us, help others, and to help ourselves. So we get, and the callings that we call is not something we choose ourselves. It's something that is given to us for a certain amount of time that we might not know, and it is not a paid calling, as we said before in other programs. Where we are not paid in this church to do things. It's a service to teach us and to help us constantly be reminded of this covenant that we have entered in to serve others. And when we do that, we serve our Lord, and also we will be blessed ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So that part is very, very interesting. We mentioned a little bit about talents before, that we're given talents to help us actually reach out to people, or not necessarily just through that, but using our talents as we serve others. And it is not just with people, it could be anywhere, but it's also in the church that we can do this to help build people up and uplift and in our callings, or so we can use our talents to these places. And that's why talents all of a sudden become very important, that we actually develop it, or at least try to, because there are literally an instrument given from God for us to give and share with others.
Yeah.
And so we are also asked as members of the church, and anyone can actually do this, of course, because it's a really good principle, is to look for your talents and find them. And it's not necessarily as much as branding them as talents, but abilities maybe is a better word, because we're so caught up in maybe what talent do we have, but abilities. And we will find that the abilities that we have are very great, because we are children of God, and so we have inherited a lot of His abilities as well.
Yeah, and as you serve and as you share your talents, you also discover other talents. And sometimes I've had the experience of being called as something that I didn't think I was exactly ready for or had the right talents for, but then I discovered something, because by using the faith to try it out and just give it a shot, I was able to discover that I actually had some talents. And ones I didn't know I had previously. Exactly.
And sometimes, so it's not necessarily because we're called these callings that we're given, it's not because necessarily we are the best at it, or that we have already developed a talent. Sometimes we actually develop it, as we say yes, in faith, and in faith that the Lord will bless us and help us to fulfill this calling, or just like when we venture out to a soul that is in need. We also venture out there not thinking, I'm going to be the best that's going to help this person, but we venture out there because we recognize that service and help is a divine principle, and it will benefit not only ourselves, but certainly people around us. And so in that way, we also leave ourselves open for the Lord to work through us. Mm-hmm. And that part is very important. So we are not asked to be perfect. We're not asked to be the best at everything. That's not the purpose of talents or abilities. It is just to use whatever is being given us and to grow and develop.
Yeah.
And I remember one time when I was very young, I was actually, and that was back in almost 1840. I was
right in the church's beginning.
Yeah, I was about, was I 12 or 13? And I already played piano, but of course, being young, there was a limit to how much I played. And yet I was called in this very big ward in Denmark to be the choir pianist. That was very intimidating on so many levels for me. And I said yes. And then I prayed a lot and practiced a lot. And I stayed in that calling for a long time. And I stayed so long that in the age of 14, I was called as the organist, which means I had to play the organ for the sacrament meeting in the church. Which is harder, and I did not play the organ at that time. So every Saturday I took lessons so I could play the organ right. So that's how we learned to play the organ for many, many years.
And there's a talent that you got.
Well, yes, and I got it. But the thing that I experienced more than anything, and that's just one example, is that even whether I know a little bit or I didn't know anything, the Lord still helped me. I know that I still had to do my part. I had to say yes and be willing, and not at all necessarily in a perfect way, because I'm not perfect, but I did say yes, and I did try, and He did the rest. And it became a wonderful experience, and also sometimes not a wonderful experience, because I'm a human. But in the Lord, that was not the Lord's part. The Lord blessed me so I could fulfill that calling. And when I had said yes to something, He made sure that He lived up to His part and blessed me so I could fulfill that.
Yeah. And I would like to just give a little shout out to missionaries, because this is one of the ways that members kind of go beyond the call of duty, I guess, to serve. And also, that kind of really ties in with, oh, well, maybe I'm not good enough and stuff. You all might have seen little, 18-year-old boys and 19-year-old girls dressed in nice clothes, riding bikes around, knocking on your door. And you might think, oh, they don't know anything because they're only 18 years old. And it's true that they might not have a lot of experience, or some of the experiences that you might have had.
That's true.
But just like Tia was saying, since they've been called of God, God is going to give them the knowledge and the abilities that they need. He will help them in their work, and so they're actually really nice. So if you haven't talked to them, you probably should, and learn from them, because they do have an important message, and they have been called of God's prophet, and in that way by God. And
they have chosen it. This is a call they choose. This is a call they say, I want to do this, and they don't know where they're going. And some of the missionaries are sent all over the world and having to learn another language as well. And they might not be perfect, just like I'm not perfect in speaking English. And yet, we just try. And the Lord will help us in what we do. The gospel will always be perfect, and the gospel is the Lord's gospel. And we just try to share it. And having that wonderful opportunity, we're fulfilling one of the things that we're asked to do, to serve the Lord and serve our fellow beings. Yeah,
and so that's will be our little challenge, or for you all, challenge. To see in your lives where you can serve. Serve your spouse, serve your kids, serve your friend. Do more if you're a church member. Do more for your home teaching family, or visiting teaching family this month. Because when we serve our fellow beings, we're serving God. And He's given us families so we can learn and grow, and we can learn to love. And He's also given us this church organization because we are one big world family. We're all brothers and sisters in the Lord, and He wants us to not just look at us and what we can do, but also how we can help others. So thanks everyone for coming again to In His Own Language. Remember to share on Facebook and get the word out. And stay tuned, because a new show will soon come up also from In His Own Language, Gospel in 5, which will be us talking just in 5 minutes. So that would also be a great opportunity for you to tune in if you don't have as much time. Or ADD. Yeah. So thank you. Have a great week. Yeah, and see you again. Everyone. Bye. Bye.